Hi everyone and welcome to my new video where we are going to be setting up my bullet journal for January. This is going to be the first theme in my brand new bullet journal, and if you haven't seen how I set this up, go watch my previous video and I will also link it in the end screen so you can watch that after this one. Because my bullet journal setup was quite decorative and I didn't have as much time to listen from Pinterest, I came across both flowers and found out that snowdrops are the flower of January, so I decided to go for that. I already made a couple winter themes in my 2023 bullet journal, so I wanted something different. For the outlines I used sizes 03 and leaves. By the way, I have listed all the supplies that I used in this video in the description as always, so go check that out if you want to know more about the pens I use. Would have been too simple for me, so I added some clouds in the background and drew them with a 005 line liner so they wouldn't take the attention away from the snowdrops. I think these clouds made this cover feel a bit more dreamy, which I really like. And they also remind me a little bit of my last year's January setup, which I will link in the description if you want to go for this more sketchy and loose look, I guess, instead of making very perfect outlines, because I just have been really liking this style lately, and it also leaves more room for making little mistakes, which I as a and water-based markers, which I've been loving lately. And I added a couple deep pink, so I went over that with a warm grey colored pencils to get the color I wanted. I think this Crayola marker would have worked well if I had used the illustration to make it pop a little bit. Adding simple frames is a great way to add some structure to the illustration, and I think it works really well with gold especially. To add a bit more magical look, I also drew some golden. For the decorations, I added this beige washi tape behind the Dutch door. I really loved these washi tapes and I'm sure I will use them a lot in my bullet journal as they have the perfect neutral colors. After adding the washi tapes, I felt like something was missing still, so I decided to add another frame around this illustration, so it would take more space in this cover page. I used a light grey tone boudoir brush pen for this and decided to draw a grid around the frame to add a bit more texture, I guess. I was thinking of using a light brown at first, but I'm glad I went for the grey because it looks really pretty with the gold. Speaking about gold, I added another gold frame to this up enough on its own. Now that my cover page is finally finished, we can use this old book page that I printed because it went really well with the other colors set up as well. I will link the printable that I used in the description in case you are interested and don't want to tear your own books apart. Besides the book page, I also added this grid paper where I'm going to be writing the quote, and to tie the two pages together I added the same washi tapes on the top and bottom of the paper. Usually I use a glue roller for gluing different kinds of papers in my bullet journal, but I actually ran out of that while filming. So the quote that I chose for this month goes like this: "Trust the wait, embrace the uncertainty, enjoy the beauty of becoming when nothing is beginning of the year, as this is always an exciting time and good for setting up paper monogatari," as I felt like they went really well with the colors and vibe of this cover spread. Now that my cover is finally done, we can move on to my monthly spread. I'm actually starting an internship in January, which I'm very excited about, and because of that I figured that I will need more space for my monthly calendar, so I went for a 2-page calendar layout, if I remember right, and I will also add some writing space on the right side for notes. I decided to use a cursive font just for a change, and I don't know yet how I feel about this because I already have a cursive font on the title, but I want to put the most effort on my cover page. On the right side I decided to make a layer setup. These flip-outs are really easy to make and all you need is some paper and a piece of washi tape to attach that on the page. But I guess you could use a glue stick as well, but I haven't tried that out. The paper ended up, which still annoys me a little bit, but hopefully it will straighten up once this little snowdrop on the bottom of the page, because otherwise the spread would have been too simple for my liking, and I think I used just one fine liner this time to correct little mistakes like this, so I definitely recommend you to get one if you don't have one yet. After I had added the finishing touches like this gold line on the top, it was time to move on to the next spread, which is going to be my tracker spread. I decided to go for this layout, which has the happy trackers on top and mood tracker on the bottom, instead of making them on their own pages, because I just really like this layout, and I also feel like it's a little bit quicker to set up. I used this grid paper for every other calendar because I like the texture, and for the rest of the boxes I decided to make this gingham pattern, which I also really love. My habits are going to be the same as last month, as I didn't need to feel to start tracking any new ones, especially because I will have the internship going on and want to focus on that. I guess the original purpose of the habit tracker was to use it to make new habits and change the habit to a new one when you've made it into a daily habit. Don't count how many times I said habit. Anyway, for me that doesn't work because I get motivated when I see tracker that is filled in, and if I don't track the habits I already do, I might start to forget them. Usually I add just one new habit at a time, because the reality is that it's difficult to make it a habit at first, and the tracker might end up looking quite empty, which can be a little sad to see. So having habits that I already do daily, like taking my vitamins and making my bed, is important, as then having an empty tracker is not that big of a deal. For my mood tracker, I'm using the same one as always, where I will just draw a doodle or two that describe my day. And for the finishing touches, I added a gold line under the title again, and also some pieces of washi tape. For my weekly spreads, I went for a Dutch door layout again, because it saves so much time, as I only have to decorate the spread once. I don't think I will ever go back to regular weekly spreads, because I just love the Dutch door layout so much, but never say never, I guess. For the decorations I drew snowdrops again, but this time I added a little vase for them to change things up. This whole setup took about 4 hours for me to make, which was actually longer than I thought, but this was a pretty quick setup for me still, especially compared to my December setup, which took 7 hours. Lately I've been loving very decorative setups, even though I haven't had as much time to set up my bullet journal, but making something simple is important as well, so I don't end up overworking, as these videos take a really long time to edit. Because of my internship, you might see more simple themes in the next couple of months, but we will see. I will try my best to manage my time better, so I wouldn't have to hurry on making these setups. Anyway, I would love to hear what's going to be your theme in January, and whether you are going for simple or decorative, so let me know in the comments. In 2023, my goal was to make a bit more colorful themes, as my 2022 themes were very neutral and I felt like that was limiting my creativity. I'm glad that I achieved that goal and also tried a little bit different things, and I'm really excited to see what kind of year 2024 will be for me bullet journal wise. I don't have any goal in mind yet, so we will see what kind of things I will end up making. Speaking about 2023, I don't know yet if I will post a flip through of my bullet journals, because I haven't had the time to film it yet, but if you would like to see that video, let me know in the comments so I know whether I should make it. Oh, and if there are any specific themes you would like to see from me in 2024, let me know as well, as that would help a lot, because I often struggle with coming up with my themes. Anyway, I decided to cut horizontal Dutch doors this time, because I feel like I can use more different kinds of layouts for my weeklies with them, And if you do this, be super careful when you are cutting around your notebook's binding so it doesn't break. And I feel like X-Acto knife is a really great tool for this because it has more precision. For my first weekly spread, I went for this Gingham pattern layout, which you've probably seen many times if you've been watching my videos for a while. Gingham patterns are just my favorite, and it's such a simple way to make the spread look more colorful and interesting. This time I set up just the first 2 weekly spreads because I don't know yet which layout will work the best for me with the internship. The great thing about bullet journaling is that you can change it up whenever you need, and that makes it more flexible than a regular planner, which is probably the reason why bullet journal is the only type of planner that has ever worked for me. For my second weekly spread, I went for this vertical layout which has a lot of writing space for tasks, and I think this might be the layout I will use for the rest of the weeklies, but we will see. The first layout works a little bit better if I want to journal about my day, and it has a lot of writing space too. As a last step, I decided to round the corners of the Dutch doors with my corner cutter because they feel a bit nicer that way. Now it's time for the final flip through, and I really like how this setup turned out. I love the calm neutral colors and the simplicity of the setup, and I definitely want to make more themes like this every once in a while. Let me know what you think of this setup, and remember to leave a like and a cloud emoji in the comments if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye!